I'm Jim Carroll. As a futurist, my job is to inspire your imagination, challenge you with disruption, and spur you on to greater success with innovation in a world which involves the era of acceleration. And I want to put in perspective for you some of those trends that you need to be thinking about as we go into a faster future. You know, if you've been following me in the past, you know one of my key words for my clients is that the future belongs to those who are fast. And through the last several years, I've witnessed a number of my clients approach this reality by doing something fascinating. They've carved out the fast-growing, fast-moving portion of their organization and have put it into a separate legal entity so that that organization can operate and innovate at the speed required to restructure your innovation capabilities and your ability to align yourself to the fast-paced trends of the future. Visit my website, watch some of my video, give me a call, contact me, and we can talk about how you can align yourself for a world of unrelentless change and fascinating opportunity. I'm Jim Carroll, Futures Trends and Innovation Expert. Futurist Jim Carroll from the virtual broadcast studio. Here's some really fascinating news emerging today that I just thought I would share with you. The future is back. People are thinking about it again. Look, every day I get up and I track what's going on my website and the search phrases that people are using and the pages that they end up on because it helps me track a little bit as to what's going on out there. And today, the big news is I've got absolutely massive traffic happening on the page on my website, 2030.jimcarroll.com. And this is a compendium of all the various industries that I've been spending time in and how they are going to change through the next decade. Now, I put this together about a year and a half ago in a really concise overview and some challenging thoughts on where we're going to end up in the future. Well, for some reason today, there's a whole bunch of people and I know which organizations they are who are looking at this and they're sharing it and it's getting heavily trafficked. And it's actually kind of cool because I think what has happened with COVID-19, the global pandemic, is a whole bunch of people have forgotten about the future. They're not thinking about the future. They are in survival mode. They're working hard to figure out what do we do to get through the next 1, 2, 3, 6 months. And they're not really thinking about where we're going to be in 2030, but that is absolutely the worst possible thing that you can be doing right now, because despite what has happened, the future is still going on. And if you caught my video clip yesterday, I was talking about how have the trends that we were talking about 6 months ago, a year ago, changed, morphed, evolved, and what is the impact of that upon your industry? Here's what happens when people and leaders and organizations get stuck in dealing with the crisis that is going on, and they haven't really moved through the 7 stages of economic and pandemic grief to the acceptance stage. They get stuck, they fall behind. So I want to play for you a clip from a stage presentation just over a year ago when I was in New Orleans for a massive conference, where I was talking about the future and how big our future was going to be. And I sort of played it on stage as if I was in the year 2030 looking back at the massive changes which occurred in the decade. Key thing as you watch this is all of these trends are still underway and unfolding right now. Once we looked back in time from the future, we came to realize the future turned out to be way bigger than we ever expected it would. You know, at one moment in time, we will look back at the agricultural industry and say to ourselves, at one moment in time, we used to farm when the sun was up, using manual labor and farmers and tractors. And then one day we woke up and we were doing 24-hour farming with a lot of robotic technology, farming 24 hours a day, driven and managed by a fleet of operators inside buildings. One day we will wake up and we will look back in time and remember the day when we used to actually go to stores to get the things we need. And then we woke up and one day we realized we were in a world in which the products came to us.
One day we will look back and realize that we fixed people after they became sick. But because of advances in genomic DNA-based medicine, we had increasing knowledge of what it is that they were likely to become sick with, and we could architect the delivery of healthcare solutions based upon that knowledge. One day we realized we had people called truck drivers who actually drove physical trucks. And then all of a sudden we found ourselves in a world with autonomous vehicle technology, trucks with no doors, no windows, no human inside, which were being driven by people thousands of miles away. One day we'll look back at the world of manufacturing and realize that we were in a world of manufacturing in which we would produce millions of products that were all the same. But then with 3D printing and end of runway manufacturing, we found ourselves in a world in which we were doing mass customization, in which we were not designing products that were all the same for millions of people, but we were designing products which were uniquely customized for every single customer and were 3D printed on an end of runway manufacturing site close to their home. And the entire concept of inventory forever disappeared. There are massive transformative trends that are underway today, which are forever shaping the world of every single industry.
Here's the thing, a lot of people forget about what they need to be doing to align to this future that's going to unfold by the year 2030, and they're not innovating, they're falling behind. They sort of fall prey to what happens in previous recessions. And you will know that I spent a lot of time on stage in late 2008, 2009, 2010, talking about what organizations needed to do to move through economic challenges and periods of uncertainty. I've got a whole bunch of clips that I use. My remote actually just broke. I've got a whole bunch of clips from that period of time in which I put in perspective. This is why it's always fun going live. I've got a whole bunch of clips from that period of time in which I put in perspective the dramatic change that was occurring, what organizations needed to do to align to getting through this aggressive indecision which held them back. So I'm going to share this clip with you, which is from February 2009 on stage in Las Vegas for a massive global conference where I'm talking about how to get back into the future when everything seems to be so uncertain.
We know this is a challenging time. We know this is a pretty severe occurrence occurring around the world. I like to think long term. I like to think about where we're going to be. So here we find ourselves today. We're talking about the future. We're talking about reality. We have this new economic reality which has invaded our space in the last 6 to 8 months. And a lot of us are wondering, well, how do we focus on opportunity when we're in such challenging recessionary times? What do we do to focus on opportunity? And I think the big question for everybody in the room is, when do we begin to innovate? Do you innovate, once we come out of the recession? Do you wait until we know that, we're all comfortable with where we're going in the future? Or do you choose to innovate now? Do we make the conscious decision right now, each and every one of us, that we are going to focus on the future from this point on? I was on stage in October with one of the world's largest organizations, and during this presentation, this is when the market was crashing. The CEO got up on stage in front of his team, and he said, we have 3 choices in terms of what is going to happen with the economic challenges we are faced with. Number 1, we can panic. Number 2, we can choose to do nothing. We can choose to do what we've always done in the same way. Or number 3, with the new economic realities in which we find ourselves, we can change, we can innovate, and we can adapt. Their conscious decision is, we're going to build for growth. We're going to make the conscious decision that we are going to be a driver of that growth. Innovative organizations today are focused on opportunity. I was talking at one event in October as the meltdown was beginning to occur, and the CEO was on stage, and part of his message was, look, given what's happening, we have 3 choices. Number 1, we can panic. Number 2, we can do nothing. Or number 3, we can continue to innovate, change, and adapt. The time to innovate is now. The time to change is now. The time to invest in the future is now.
So here's the thing, are you stuck where you are right now? You're so focused on what you need to do to manage day by day, and you've fallen into this trap of not getting beyond this moment in time, and you're forgetting how your industry is changing and what you need to do to get there. And that's why I was so excited to see the web traffic on this particular webpage, 2030.jimcarroll.com, on my website, literally exploding starting early this morning, because it tells me that there are people out there who are beginning to move on, starting to realign in the future, starting to realize that they've done enough right now to manage the crisis as it is, but they've got to start aligning and working hard to get to where they need to be. And I'm actually doing some talks around that. I've got a topic, Our World in 2030, the post-pandemic trends that redefine our future. And I'm actually doing a talk in the energy sector, doing a talk in the healthcare sector. I just did a talk in the education sector, and I'll be doing a forthcoming talk in the retail sector, and there's a bunch of other things bubbling below the surface. All of these are taking a look at what were we talking about, when it comes to the future before the global pandemic, and how has that changed as a result of the pandemic. All of these trends which were with us before, 3D printing and artificial intelligence and blockchain and the Internet of Things and virtualization and augmented reality and massive transformation of industries, it's all still here. It hasn't gone away, and a lot of it is shifted and changed and morphed and sped up such that it's happening faster than ever before. So people are beginning to think once again as to what they need to do to align to a world in which the future belongs to those who are past. Is really exciting for me because I'm a futurist. This is where I spend my time. All of my time is spent with organizations, helping them to understand what comes next. And right now, it's all happening right here in the virtual broadcast studio at jimcarroll.com. To learn more, visit virtual.jimcarroll.com, because it's virtual done right. Have a good one. We'll see you again shortly.